Alright, so Bitcoin did something that I wasn't really expecting, and I'm going to go over that and go over what I think that could mean. So, I shouldn't say I didn't really expect it. I would just, was hoping that it wouldn't happen again, but yet again, we have front run a very key support. This seems to be a pattern recently. We front run key support and then come back for it later. And we kind of did the same thing here. The only difference is that with this one, we actually did do something significant. Whereas with this low, all we really did was take out the value area low. In this case, we actually took out the range low, which I think is much more significant. The last time we took out the range low, which at the point it was more of a market structure point, but we kind of created a range after SFPing this point. We almost got a full rotation of the range back up to all-time highs. So, with this SFP, we could potentially expect something similar. But, I was really hoping that we would come down and hit this box and just make it a clean low, not really leave any reason for us to come back to the downside later. But unfortunately, we did front run that, which makes me a bit more skeptical of this move to the upside. But, there are some bullish things that I cannot ignore. I mean, this is a very strong move to the upside. I like, this big buying wick here that showed a lot of strength, and that brought us up above the value area low again. So a very aggressive, bullish move. And, Market Cipher, while, we got conflicting things across the higher time frames, weekly has a red dot on it, bearish div. The 3-day still looks iffy with momentum moving to the downside overall, but, I mean, it looks like money flow is trying to creep back into the green here. But the 2-day and the daily do not look too bad. Other than the money flow coming out on the daily, the 2-day, I mean, it's printing a nice looking trigger wave here. And this is no divergence, but it is still the first time we've seen momentum down below the zero line on the 2-day since April. So it's been a while, and this is, so far a nice direction, a nice trigger wave. We're seeing potentially some bullish things as we got this SFP. However, I do think a bit of that skepticism is still there just for the fact that we front ran support. Even if it is kind of looking bullish on Market Cipher right now, I still think it is possible that we make another lower high and eventually come back down for this low. But I also think the farther we push to the upside, the less likely that is. We are currently running into resistance. We are at the point of control of the range, and we're at some more local resistance, and we're starting to form a bit of a range here on the lower time frames. We can also see on the 12-hour potentially VWAP starting to curve back to the downside a little bit, and as we go to the lower time frames, that starts to become more apparent, and the 4-hour is actually looking like it may print a, I guess you would call it a trigger wave, a continuation of direction here on the 4-hour. But there is a bit of what I call outward curve in the VWAP. I get confused because I think me and CryptoFace say it opposite, but it is curving outwards away from the zero line, looking like it's hesitant to cross over it and actually give us a red dot here. So a bit of a fight from the bulls to keep the VWAP above the zero line, and money flow also on the 4-hour. Nice curvature, and is now crossing into the green. So, even on these lower time frames where things are looking like they might start to top out, I think money flow overall looks good. On the 2-hour, it is starting to get a more aggressive move above the zero line. Even though I think it's possible that we do eventually come back down to this low, I cannot ignore the fact that we're locally in a bullish environment, and Market Cipher is kind of saying that that bullishness may continue. So with that being said, if we do start to reject from this point of control and we pull back to an area like, say, the value area low, which I think has some nice confluence, I would call this a pretty important support resistance area, support in these two areas, resistance, and on a lower time frame, I know there was some resistance here as well before we broke out, so it is looking like a nice place to backtest. And if there's a long setup here, then I will certainly take it. That is right now my area of interest for a pullback. I do think if we start losing this area, like, with some bearishness, like actually breaking farther down below lows, that isn't really looking good. At that point, I might start to lean more towards a continued move to the downside. But, price can come down here and maybe even range for a bit, hang out here, and eventually get another move back to the upside. So that is one idea I'm currently looking at. I'm also looking at shorts from where we are at. I actually just bailed out of one locally, and currently that's going against me because it's starting to move to the downside. But I will look in this local range and see if I can't find a short trade to maybe bring us down to the value area low. And I think that's about it for today. If we start breaking above the point of control, I think that's more bullish. But you know, there is some resistance above us. I think there's going to be some resistance around the value area high. There's some confluence there. So I definitely am not in a position to say, like, if we start breaking above this resistance, that we're definitely going to get moved to all-time high. I mean, it's possible. You know, I'm still going to be skeptical, and I'm going to be looking at the resistance areas to see if there's maybe a short trade, because there could be, you know, another aggressive dump. We've seen a lot of kind of aggressive swings, especially as of lately. It's gotten more choppy, I feel. Alright, well, that does it for this one. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like, subscribing, leaving a comment. I appreciate the support, and I'll see you all in the next video.